Hello, and thank you for joining me for Tune In Tuesday. My name is Sharon Rogers, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Wells, Maine. And every second and fourth Tuesday, I come to you on YouTube with a video class. Now, this class tonight features the All About Autumn Designer Series paper, as well as the Autumn Leaves bundle from Stampin' Up! And this is such a cute, fast project, and best of all, it's one that is meant for someone else. All our cards that we make generally are for someone else because we send them, but this is a little gift. It is a folio with 4 cards. Let's get started. We're going to begin with a piece of 8.5 by 11 Moody Mauve cardstock. And I have chosen that color because it goes with several of the sheets that are in the All About Autumn Designer Series paper. Now, the All About Autumn Designer Series paper is not currently in stock, but it does come back the week of October 9th. Many of you do have it already as part of a class that I had previously offered. But of course, you can use any Designer Series paper that you want. These specific designs are what I'll be featuring. You can see there's some other different designs on the back, but all beautiful. I'm going to set this aside for right now. Let's make the folio. To create the folio, you're going to take your trimmer or your simply scored board, and you're going to score it on the long side at 5 1/4 and 5 3/4. So your scoring blade is the light gray one. Then you're going to turn it and score it on the short side at 2 inches. And now that it's all scored, you will want to take your bone folder and go ahead and make a nice crisp fold on those score lines. And this one as well. Maybe a little bit difficult to see, but in this center, you've got a 1/2 inch strip, and on the smaller side, that's where you want to trim. I'm not going to trim right on this line. I'm going to miter in from the outside. So I'm just going to cut to that point that's right up there, but I'm starting a little bit off the line. This will just create a nicer fold on the inside. And then I'm going to cut right on this score line. Okay, so I have that, and that is my folio. We just need to adhere these sides. I'll bring in my tear and tape. I almost called it sticky strip. And I'm using my fingernail to try to find the end. There it is. Just gonna put it right on the edge on both sides here. Just gonna burnish that down. That helps that hold a little bit better. And I'm gonna take your pick tool, because I find that one of the easiest ways to remove the backing. And we're just gonna fold up. And again, burnish that down. That helps that get a good stick going. And now we need to decorate the front of it. Let's bring in our designs and determine which one is going to go on the front. It might be a little bit better for you to decide which one is going to go on the inside. Now, I initially picked these 4 to go together on the cards that are going on the inside. So I think I'll stick with that. And this will be my cover. There are some slight glimpses of the Moody Mauve in here, so it does tie in nicely. I'm going to cut this down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So the front of this folio, let me show you, measures 5 1/4 by 6 1/2. So that's an inch larger than a quarter sheet of cardstock. So if I were to set maybe a piece of white here, and I wanted to make that a quarter sheet, so cut it at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That'll go right on the front like that. And then we need a sheet that's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to cut this at, let's do it at 4 by 5 1/4. 4 by 5 1/4. And so we'll layer that on and put that on the front. Now you can choose to use some ribbon or something to tie this together, but I don't think it's necessary. In fact, I'm not going to tie it together. I'm just going to let it be the way it is. Kind of a simple project with not a lot of product involved. Let's just add this on here. Now I chose white, but this particular designer series paper also has some vanilla elements in it as well. If I look at the papers that I picked here, this one right here definitely has a base that's whiter than not. But there are some other papers in this that you can see it's more of a vanilla base. So you can use both here, depending on which color scheme you're going with. This paper is beautiful, which is no wonder why it sold out. So if I were you, I would keep a really good eye on it when it comes in on October 9th, because it will be one that people are snagging, which is what happened the first 2 times it was available. All right. Whoops, it's crooked. Hold on, let me straighten this out. Again, the wonder of liquid glue. You're able to do that. And we could put a sentiment on here. So let's just see what we've got. We can put leaves or we can put sentiments on. So this is the set Autumn Leaves that I'm going to be using. And I just think this is a beautiful saying right here. Autumn teaches us that change can be beautiful. All right, to decorate the front of the folio, I'm going to use the maple leaf stamp and the Autumn Teaches Us Change Can Be Beautiful stamp. I have a piece of Moody Mauve, and let's bring in the Moody Mauve ink pad. Put some texture on that leaf. Well, while I have the ink pad out, which I don't really have it out because I just put it away, get that sentiment. There's a scrap of basic white. And we'll die cut these 2 pieces. Bring in our Stampin' Cut and Emboss Mini. So cute. I think I need to do one of these at a time. If I had the large one out, I could do them both at the same time. That's pretty good. I'm gonna live on the edge and not use any tape or Post-it to stick that down. we'll take the maple leaf die and put that on there. Line that up as best we can. Let's see here. That looks pretty good. All right. Bring in our folio. Put that right there. Let's see, put this right here. I do have some extra copper leaves that I could put in here. Do I have more than one? I think I do. Yeah, just put some layers to that. That's not bad right there. All right, I'm gonna kind of remember that. I'm gonna try. This needs dimensionals. Let's use these up. Got some edges to use. I need to think about where these go in conjunction, only because I'm going to have some adhesive here and I want to be able to slide the leaves in where they need to go. Let's see here. I feel like maybe they'd be better off down here, off to the side. So stick this one down here. And let's see if we can bring in some sequins. A couple dark ones and a light one. There we go. You know what? I think I like the lighter one up here. Ah, stuck to my finger. Put this one down here. There we go. Just have something easy like that. Now let's make the cards that go inside. If you would like the class kit that will allow you to create the folio plus the 4 cards with matching envelopes, then simply place an order of $40 or more before Sunday, September 24th at 7 p.m. using the link in the description below. That link contains a special host code that will allow me to identify those that are looking to get the class kit. In addition to the supplies, you will receive an emailed tutorial that will let you know the measurements and the products that I've used tonight. If your order is $55 or more, then I will also include, in addition to the class kit and tutorial, I will include a package of the Neutrals adhesive backed sequins that I used tonight on many of the cards. I've gone ahead and cut some card bases. Now I have decided to mix it up, but you don't need to mix it up. I'm going with one card base that is Moody Mauve, and so this is 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 4 1/4. Same thing with this, but only in copper clay. And then I have 2 thick basic white ones. And I choose thick basic white when I'm making a card base that's of white because it's just more substantial, feels like a better card. Then I went ahead and I cut some layers. So I cut one layer. If I just fold this card base, you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. I cut one layer. That is a standard layer size of 4 by 5 1/4. I cut 1 of copper clay. I cut 1 of Moody Mauve. And then I need two that measure, is this the right one? Yep, that's the right one. 2 that measure 4 by 5 1/4 of the white. So let me just make sure. This is 5 1/4 and 4. So that is a standard layer size for the card base. Now, if I were to add another layer here, and I would continue in the same vein, I would go 1/4 of an inch less in each dimension. However, because of the technique that we're using, we need to go 1/2 an inch less in one of the measurements. So your card base here is going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Your layer is going to be 4 by 5 1/4, and the DSP is going to start at 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. So it's this measurement right here that's less. Let me move all this out of the way, and we'll show you how we're going to do that. As I mentioned, I picked out 4 designs from my designer series paper. And I went with the Moody Mauve and Copper Clay theme because this sheet tied it all together nicely. This one has the Moody Mauve and just has some of that deeper, pretty peacock color. So I thought these all worked nicely together. I'm going to stack them. This is called the stack and shuffle technique. And I want all 4 layers to be the same size. So I'm going to stack them together and cut them. And your paper trimmer will be able to handle this because it's designer series paper and not cardstock. Now, if you have directional paper, you want to pay attention. None of these sheets are directional in nature. So there's not like a picture where, this is the head up and this is the feet. So this will work. But if you have directional paper, make sure everything's going in the same direction. I'm going to cut this at 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. So here's the 3 3/4. And then I'm going to turn it, making sure it stays stacked, and cut it at 4 3/4. And I can set those pieces aside for use in decorating envelopes or insides of cards. Now with this stack, here's where the magic happens. I'm going to put this on an angle. I'm not measuring anything. And I'm making that cut, and then I'm going to set it aside. Then I'm going to slide it over, making sure all the edges are still remaining together. Oops, they slid a little bit. I'm just going to restack them and cut at an angle again, and putting that right beside the other one so the order stays the same, and that's very important. All right, and so this one comes next, and then this one. So I've stacked them and cut them. This is what I got. You can see that I could put them right back together and they would make their little rectangle. Now it's time to shuffle. I'm going to leave this first one alone. This second stack, I'm going to shuffle that top sheet to the bottom. And then this next one, I'm going to shuffle the top 2 and move those to the bottom. I'm not really shuffling, I'm just moving them to the bottom. And then this last stack, I'm going to take the top 3, 1, 2, 3, and put those on the bottom. So at this point, you should have one of each design showing. And in fact, each pile, as you remove these, the designs will shift, but they are all represented. All 4 will be seen at once. So now go ahead and bring in one of your layers. I think it will be easiest if I bring in this particular layer to show you how this works. I move that up a little bit. I'm going to take the top piece of designer series paper and I'm just going to place that on here. So finding the rough placement first is kind of important. See how I'm leaving a little bit of space in between. I have found that when you go to put these together, the first thing you want to do are the two outside pieces. And I look to keep the same border at the top and the left and the bottom. So let's go ahead and we're going to put a little bit of glue on here. And remember, I want my border to be pretty uniform. There we go. I'm going to ignore these two middle ones for a second, and I'm going to address the back one. And here we go. What's amazing about this paper is that both vanilla and white work with it, because although some of these sheets have a distinctive white in them, others are more vanilla. So you have your options here. And now these last two, you may want to just sort of play and make sure that you've kind of got their spacing down. So if you put one of them in place and just keep that there, that'll make the other two, the other one easy to put down. I just want to keep straight edges at the top and the bottom. And then we can put that on a card base. So if I bring my bases back, fold this in half, and we'll just glue this right onto the front. This is really a very simple technique and one where you can knock quite a few out at one sitting. All right, so there's one base. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through the other ones. Let's bring in our mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and we're going to bring in the Autumn Leaves dies. These are great by themselves, but they do coordinate with the Autumn Leaves stamp set. I'm going to use the veins for the large maple leaf and then the outline for the large maple leaf. And let's go ahead and bring in our Moody Mauve. Get my plates here. So I like, for my machine, plate number 3 works better than plate number 1. But all machines are a little bit different. And let's see, I will use the same color for both my veins and my leaf. Now I need a top plate. Just crank that right through. Now, if you have adhesive sheets, would have been a good time to add them to the back of this area right here where we're cutting this one off. But I love green glue and I use it all the time, and I'm pretty proficient at adding it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just wing it with my glue. All right, just be careful when you're taking it out of here because these veins are very, very thin. You don't want to tear them. Let's go ahead and bring in the glue. I'm working on the wrong side, and you can tell it's a little bit rougher. Just a little bit of glue on the ends of some of these, ends of most of them actually. All right, and we'll put this, and if you want to use a different color, maybe you want to use an early espresso color or something else, you can. I just chose to keep it monochromatic here. You can bring in one of these and decide which one it goes best on. Now, I don't like it on this one because too much of it goes onto that part of the same color. It definitely looks better here, even though this is on that as well. We can do this. That looks pretty nice. It kind of ties it all together. I think I like it best on this one. So I'll glue that down. Just hold that for a second. And you're good to go. Now we're going to put a sentiment on here and we'll be done. So for the sentiment, I'm going to bring in a piece of basic white. And I'm going to use the I'm Thankful. Season of Thanks is coming up. It'll be here before you know it. Let's go ahead and put that right here. And of course I have a choice of colors. I will stick with the Moody Mauve, which is one of our in colors. I'm Thankful. If I go back to my dies, this particular set has 2 label dies. Well, 3 if you count that one. And we'll bring out this one. We'll need our plates again to die cut. Let's put this out of the way. Bring our machine back in. At this point, if you want to hold this in place a little bit with a piece of washi tape, you can. Remember, you want to put it on a slight angle. This is tough to angle because it's because of the way I cut it so wide. If you want to put a piece of washi tape on there to hold it down, you can, or a Post-it note, something like along those lines. All right. Crash is in here because my husband let him in here, and now he has decided he wants to leave, but he's going to have to wait until I'm done. Let's make this stick out a little bit. We'll be using some dimensionals to pop that off the page. Now you can get fancier with this. Use some ribbon in here, some twine. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. pretty simple, except for I want to bring in some gems. Now on this particular one, I think I'm going to bring in these grayish, whitish ones. I think those will look nice in here. These little sequins. They don't show up very well on that, however. So maybe I put them just out here. I got my 3 odd ones, and there we have a simple card. We just need to put something in the middle. I cut this piece at 3 3/4 by 5 inches because I can get 5 of these pieces out of 1 sheet of cardstock. If I bring in the excess that I had cut off before, you can see those fit on there quite well. You can decide whether you want to cut them down a little bit or if you want to keep the whole thing on there. Let's see what I like on the inside of the card. I think I like this bigger piece on there. I want it all the way to the edge though. Oops, got a little glue extra hanging off. Guess I got a little heavy-handed near the edge. Let's see, that's pretty good. And so there is our completed card. Now we just have to complete the rest of them. Okay, let me show you something. I went to pick this up and the handle fell off. Well, that's because this was not quite on there tight enough, I don't think. You do have to assemble it when you get it. Here's how you can fix it. So if you look on the inside, there's one edge that's a little bit flat. And right up here, I can see that that's pointed to the top. So I want to put that on. I'm going to take my take your pick tool and take this cover off. There's a little secret cover. I think I'm going to take it off. Hold on while I fight with it. It stays on there pretty well, which I guess is a good thing. There we go. And then in here, just take a little screwdriver. It's one of those little Phillips head. Got a little cross in there. So we're just going to tighten that up. I have a little screwdriver. I'm just going to put it in there. And I'm going to tighten it. There we go. Didn't take much actually to tighten it. And a good thing to do would be to use some Loctite on it. But the Loctite is in the camper, so that's not going to happen tonight. When you're putting one of these together, whether it's this size one or the large one, use some Loctite, and that'll prevent this from happening in the first place. All right, good as new. Let's go ahead and do some die cutting. I'm going to take the oak leaf vein this time and cut it from copper clay. I didn't put the end cap in very well. I'll have to fix that. And instead of cutting the leaf itself from that same paper, I'm going to stamp, because I do like to stamp. I take the oak leaf. Let's grab a block. Let's see. Now, this is the one that I can find easily, so some of my blocks are packed away for the camper. I love camping, but sometimes it can get in the way of things. If I have what I need, or if I don't have it. Here's our copper clay ink pad. Ink this up. If I remember, this pad might be very juicy. That's a little too dark. See how dark that is? So my ink pad, which is not very old, is a little bit too juicy. So here's another tip on how you can help that until it just sort of wears out on its own. Not wears out, but the ink will disperse to the edges a little bit more. You can just take a spoon and rub it away. Ink it up. You see the difference? So the way this stamp set is made, it's meant to be a distinctive stamp set, which means it puts a variety of color on here. Inside, the leaf is colored, but you can see the veins there. I really don't need to add the vein that I just die cut. But let me show you what happens when I do. First of all, this leaf doesn't have a stem unless I put the vein on it. So it's just one extra element on here that will add some dimension to our project. Bring in our stamped piece. Let's see. And I don't really want this to move. That's good. We have that. Let's get the plates out of the way. Glue the vein on. Just a very light touch. You might want to use a sponge on your silicone mat with this, or you can purchase a fine tip glue bottle and just transfer the liquid. So these veins don't line up with the other ones exactly. They don't need to, but there we have that. Let's go ahead and bring this in here. Now, because this has a little bit of a white edge, it automatically sticks off that copper color a little bit better. Just see which one we like it on the best. I think I like it on this one the best. Now you can punch this up on dimensionals if you want to. I think just having this sentiment up on dimensionals is enough. You can stick with the same dimension, same sentiment, or do something different. All right, so I've gone ahead and finished these cards. So with the inside, this one I took one of the smaller oak leaf dies and used one of those scraps of designer series paper. Cut that out. Oh, and you'll notice that this one I have the leaf over the sentiment, and here it's under. That was the first card. And on this one, I just cut some oak leaves out of Moody Mauve and another one out of copper clay, 2 out of each, and put one on the inside with a little strip of extra designer series paper. Now we can decorate the envelopes and we can stamp them, or we can just use some of this designer series paper that is left over. This is a very wide strip. I think I will cut this. Let's see, it's a little bit over 2 inches long. It's 2 1/4 inches long. So if I did 1 1/8, and that's a little bit wide for an envelope. So let's go ahead and do 3/4 inch strips. Get 3 of those out of that one. Go ahead and just take one out of here as well. I'm just going to keep our envelopes very simple. just put a little strip down here. You do want to make sure it's tacked down pretty well. You don't have to use a ton of glue, but you do want to make sure it's tacked down pretty well so that it goes through the postal machines easily. There we go. Flip this over and trim it off. And see how this is coming up a little bit on the edge? Just want to make sure it's tacked down pretty well. Just make sure those corners are, you don't have to do all of it, but those corners are pretty important. All right, so we have our folio. We have our cards and envelopes. I like to arrange my cards with my envelopes, so you can just grab one and go. But if you like to be able to show off your cards, then you can just put the cards in the front and the envelopes behind. It probably does look better, doesn't it? So for presentation, that does look better. Let's go ahead. So we have a set of 4 thankful cards that we can give to someone. This would make a nice little gift to somebody that's maybe been in the hospital and needs to send some thank you cards, or just, you know, somebody that you know just loves to thank people and has plenty of opportunity to do so. I mean, we all have plenty of opportunity, but look at that cute little folio. Fits 4 cards very nicely, and I would not try to fit more than 4 cards because this edge right here is glued directly down, so it has to work to kind of come out here. If you had more cards, you would need to make this, you'd have to change the design and cut it so that there's space in here. You're creating a little bit more of a box, so you'd have to have another edge. But there you go. I'm so glad you could join me for this video, whether you watched it when it aired or if you're watching on the replay. Giving a gift is great. It's even better if you're giving a gift that becomes a gift. So when you give this folio to someone and then they send the cards to people, you are giving a gift that gives multiple times over. And I hope you enjoy that as much as I do. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.